Tonight on the Cover One Buffalo podcast, Aaron and I are going to talk about our free agent wish list of guys we want to sign and absolutely nothing else because nothing else happened today. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how was your afternoon?
I'm tired, Greg. My eyes hurt from scrolling phones and Twitter.
There's so much screen time. So much
a lot of screen time.
Oh my God.
I had like 2.5 weeks of notes that are just gone.
I did.
We were supposed to do today.
Spreadsheet of free agent wish list stuff for tonight. And I don't even know if we're going to talk about any of it.
Luckily, honestly, I didn't have a lot on the offensive side of the ball. So this is actually, I was a little worried. We've been joking the last couple of weeks of like, hey, we're not even going to run an hour. And we obviously always go a little bit over that. And I was really sincerely concerned today of like, I don't have a lot of offensive wish lists. I want to draft a lot. What are we going to talk about? And I thought we'd be sitting here talking like 15 minutes about the size of Bison statues, to be honest. And yeah. I don't even care anymore.
So I've had today, we'll go through a couple things. Today was the craziest run of news for any NFL team I've ever seen since I've been following the NFL.
Yeah.
I've never seen this many transactions announced, honestly, in like a 4-hour window. Like David Edwards was later this morning. We're going to get to everything, guys. Everybody listening here, we're going to rattle through. As far as I can tell, there were...
It was the Red Wedding.
I think 14 transactions were announced today, I think. And 13 of them were within... 12 of them were within like a 4-hour window this afternoon between like 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern time. And
I didn't even know fax machines work that quickly, to be honest.
They almost got like progressively crazier as the day went. Like some of them were like, oh man, that's kind of surprising. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Wait, they did that. Like it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind as the day went. My DMs in Twitter exploded. Yeah. Every single person had questions or wanted to know something. I'm like, I can't. And then trying to catch up on all the different stuff, it was wild. So I'm not going to go in chronological order, but just for everybody listening, we'll get to all these things. We already knew about the Connor McGovern restructure. I'm pretty sure Ed Oliver got restructured too, because we saw some NFLPA movement and the numbers match up exactly to those two additions. It hasn't been announced. We'll see when that happens. Josh Allen's has not been announced, anything like that. We saw a Rasul Douglas restructure, not extension. We'll talk about that. We saw the release of Siran Neal, Nyheim Hines, Deonte Harty, Mitch Morse, Tre White, Jordan Poyer. We saw the trade of Ryan Bates. We saw a pay cut from Von Miller. And we saw the signings of David Edwards, Mitch Trubisky, Taylor Rapp, and Matt Haack. And out of those 14 things, 12 of them happened today and 11 all at once as it happened. Where do you want to start? I don't even know. Like, this is so crazy that all of these things happened all at once. I don't even know where to begin.
Well, I think we should start with the big ones of the releases. Really, the news I felt like that really sent everybody, at least on the Twitter side and world, was Jordan Poyer's release. Just from a sentimental part, like not even a football related part. We know that, we've talked about it here on this show, whether or not he's lost a step or whatever it was, just at the end of his career. We know the way Micah Hyde was talking at the end of the season, it felt like this was the end of an era, and maybe you get one more year out of Poyer and patch together some safety tandem here this one year. So I think it took people a little bit back that it was just a straight up release here for Jordan. But that was the point of the type of contract when they signed him, that we kind of felt that maybe this is just a 1-year deal that he was going to get kind of hidden as a 2-year deal. But I feel like that one really started it off. And then the other two were, for me, the big stories of the day were Mitch Morse and Tre White, just from a team captain leadership perspective. Those ones seem to hit the hardest. Mitch, both on field and sentimental, but Tre in another one in a sentimental way. And that's really, to me, the story of the day is this, like, trying to parse the understanding how the cap works, understanding what the team needs to do to field a competitive team going forward and kind of make a reset and get younger versus, man, the last 7 years here since McDermott got here, since Beane got here, I've got all these feelings, and these guys are all huge parts of that, and trying to break those two things apart of like, oh my God, this feels like a gut punch and everything's coming to an end, but really realizing that this is just part of the business. And sometimes you got to tear it down to build it back up. And so I think we start with thanking those guys for everything that they've done and the culture change that those three in particular really brought to this team.
Yeah, you go back 7 years. The first transactions that happened under Sean McDermott was the signing of Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Their introduction press conferences were together, and they've been together every single step the rest of the way. Obviously, we've talked before that it certainly sounds like Micah Hyde's going to retire. We'll see where that goes. The other releases today, we released Siran Neal, that saves $2.9 million. Nyheim Hines, that saves $4 million. Deonte Harty, that saves $4.67 million. All three of those were,
slam dunk.
Pretty clear. Hey, the contract's not worth what it was. I kind of thought they'd figure out a way to keep Siran Neal because he still had value, but not $3 million in value. The rest of them, like Jordan Poyer, was one that is probably the hardest for me in that my brain and my heart were the furthest apart.
Yep.
Like my brain knew, like, that's $5.7 million's a lot. He's probably not a $7.5 million safety, but he kind of signed for cheaper than I expected last year.
He's the team captain and locker room.
Yeah, captain. Right? We're losing Micah. Like, maybe we'll keep him and just bring in one other guy. So that one, when it happened, I was like, oh man, like I wasn't shocked. I was sad. It hurt. And I won't even lie. Like, we're not biased in our analysis of Jordan Poyer. Aaron and I have been, fairly critical of him in moments, but he's been awesome to cover one. He's been very supportive of us. We've helped him with different projects and things like that. And he's been a super, super easy player to root for. And now being in a position to see someone who like legitimately sacrifices body. And I wish I could remember who I saw it from. Maybe Yards Per Pass was the one who said it, that we don't throw around, people throw around the word warrior.
It was your buddy Joe, Buffalo Wins.
Oh, there you go. So it was Buffalo Wins. People throw around the term warrior all the time, and like it probably gets overused in some of the military analogies that people use. Like those are real heroes to go, put their bodies on the line for things like that. Jordan Poyer's a warrior. Like he legitimately like put his body through hell for this team, for this fan base, and was one of the most fun and easy players to root for over this entire stretch with the team. And, I get the financial reality, and I get that it's a pretty saturated free agent market at safety. And you go through all those different pieces in the, okay, I get it. But I was just, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, that sucks. Like, it just was sad. Like it's not crazy. It's not stupid. It makes sense. We're probably going to be able to replace him cheaper at an equal or better performance on field, but it doesn't mean that I'm not sad.
Yeah, no. And I'm sure, this is a tough day for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. Like Sean McDermott very much cares about the leadership part of he talks about that group, the leadership group that he's got and the council that he's got. Jordan Poyer absolutely has a seat at that table, and he has for years. Micah Hyde's another one of those guys. And I think there is something to be said for being able to, they probably all saw it on the wall. Like, look, we're not going to bring Micah back. Micah might not even play anymore. We don't know, but we're not going to bring him back. Now is the time. We see a saturated safety market. There are some safeties in the draft. If we're going to make this move, now's the time to make this move. And being able to separate, I'm sure they have those feelings too. They've been with this guy and his family for 7 years. Like, there is part of that. You work with people, right? Like, you have feelings for these people. This is a hard day at One Bills Drive. The way they talk about a guy like Tre White, like, he has been in that building recovering and working as hard as he can to get back from multiple injuries. It's not easy conversations for them to have. So this was a tough day all around for everybody. And the kind of what you said, separating your heart from your mind and knowing what you have to do going forward. So that's a tough day for Brandon Beane and company. And that's just the reality of the NFL. And I do think Jordan will land on his feet. I think he's still got some football left in him. I think that
I do think he'll play
somewhere.
I do.
Yeah. And it's just a shame it's not going to be for the Bills. But to your point, I think, when we have to remember, we say this all the time here at our network entirely, is that if there's any position group that the Bills can get more out of less at, it's defensive backs. And Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are the ones that we point to as some of the shining examples of how they've been able to do it and why we have that confidence in them, right? These guys were backup, rotational, special teams type players when the Bills got them and turned them into an all-pro tandem that probably for a 3-4 year run of their 7-year run here were the absolute best elite tandem of safeties in the NFL. And when you added Tre White into that mix when he was playing alongside him, it made for one of the best DB rooms in the entire NFL. And so definitely the end of an era. And that's tough here within this first wave for a lot of new Bills fans. This is the first time of sniffing any form of success. Like, you and I lived through that. I know I was really young, but the 90s Bills, and then that day when they cut Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, like all those guys left at once. That was heartbreaking to me as a young kid. It's been years since you had this kind of success, and now you're in a window where you have success and you're having this happen. It's really hard to parse through.
So that next move that you mentioned was Tre White, and that one was a mix of, although I could see the logic because it was $6 million in savings this year, or if we did it as a post-June 1st cut, $10 million in savings. I didn't think they were going to cut him while he was rehabbing from the Achilles. I just didn't. Like, I not that it's not a cold reality of the business. I didn't think they'd do it. I did not think they had it in them. And a lot of people will call me, a Pollyanna or that I'm naive to the realities of the business of it, but I just didn't think they'd do it. I did not think that they would make that decision. So doing it, and they, just to clarify for everybody, they did formally designate it a post-June 1st cut. I have a feeling that's why the team didn't formally put out the graphic today, because you saw the other guys.
Yeah.
They put Siran Neal, they put Jordan Poyer, they put Mitch Morse, they put guys like that on the graphic saying thank you. They didn't have Tre on there, and it's because they technically aren't going to release him until June 1st. It's kind of weird and cheesy. He can sign with another team between now and then. So he is released. So the post-June 1st designation, I hope they
it's in paper only. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they change that and do a thank you tomorrow. I will see where that goes.
Yeah.
So right now, he actually is not helping the Bills cap at all. It's not removing anything from that. It is, you have to wait. You don't get that. You get more savings, but you don't get it until June 1st. What I will tell people is, in my mind, that means Brandon Beane can use every dollar of cap space, knowing that
he has that buffer.
When June 1st comes, his in-season buffer is coming then, because $10 million is more than he'll need for like the whole season of transactions and moves. So last year we did sign Leonard Floyd after June 1st, so that you could have one last pass rusher being added and all your in-season
Leonard
money that you need,
bringing in guys like that.
Yeah. Your practice squad elevations, your trade deadline moves, your little, maybe not a huge trade deadline move, but little moves like that.
Right.
So he can spend all the way up to that, but we don't get that money until then.
Yep.
Again, Tre's been awesome, super, super likable player. Really a shame that we haven't got to see him for a while. And the reality is we probably weren't going to see the Tre that we had before. I thought he could still be especially with having Rasul Douglas as a CB1 level player, I thought Tre could still be a starting caliber CB2. Like he could still be a nice, like, hey, that's a good combo that's there. I still think Tre White has some football left in him. I won't be shocked. Maybe he goes home to New Orleans and plays for the Saints or something like that, back closer to home. I still expect to see Tre White play football at a NFL level, not at a star level, not at an all-pro level. I think he still has a season or two of starting caliber corner play in him, but I understand the pride of people like this. They probably approached him about a pay cut. He probably wasn't interested in that, or was, maybe honestly offended by them asking.
Yeah.
And now we're in this position. The one I had the hardest time with processing was Mitch Morse, because Mitch Morse was good last year. Not exceptional, not an all-pro, but good. He was an above average starting center. $8.5 million in savings, and releasing him is a material number, but I kind of thought he was an $8.5 million center. Like I kind of thought that's what you pay. That's matter of fact, above average center play costs more than that. And I thought he was an above average starting center, like top half of the league. And last year was the most consistency and solidarity we've ever had in front of Josh Allen on the offensive line. The announcement, Tim Graham confirmed this. It was first mentioned in the tweet by Mike Garafolo and Tom Pelissero. They're going to move Connor McGovern to center. David Edwards is going to compete for the starting guard spot, which means we're probably going to see a free agent signing of some kind at guard as well, or a draft pick or someone. And it's going to go through in that sense. So right now, the starting line will be Dion Dawkins left tackle, David Edwards left guard, Connor McGovern center, Osiris Torrance right guard, Spencer Brown right tackle. That's still fine. That's still a good offensive line. They like Alec Anderson and his flexibility. We went from David Edwards and Ryan Bates were luxuries as backups to now I don't know who our backups are, and we just have a solid starting line. So it just increased the urgency of adding to the offensive line, where at one point it kind of looked like we were bringing back our top 10 offensive linemen, and we didn't have to worry about that at all. I literally almost scratched it off of my draft needs besides maybe a center of the future. Now, Connor McGovern, they restructured his deal, so he's on this team this year and next year. So they're not going to draft a starting center. They're going to pay Connor McGovern to do that. I guess maybe they could move him back to guard. We'll see how the draft goes. Mitch Morse was the one that I had the hardest time in my brain processing, not my heart, because I didn't expect it, and I thought he was playing well. So again, $8.5 million is a material number. It's not crazy. I get it. I just was a little surprised by that one.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I do, but I don't. There's so many reasons to keep Mitch Morse on your football team. He's 31 years old. I think he's still got plenty of football left the way he looked last year. Finally played a full healthy season. You just had your whole entire offensive line put together, an entire healthy season together. You have that continuity. I heard Aaron Cromer and Eric Wood and even Mitch Morse on Eric Wood's podcast all sort of talk this year. And they talked about that continuity mattering and playing for Cromer for multiple years and finally kind of gelling together as a group. And then I even look back to that right before the Kansas City game when the article about Sean McDermott came out and the team was losing, and Mitch Morse was the voice of reason at all times. And he was the calm voice, and he was the guy that just, at least the fan in me felt like every time I heard him speak, it was like, all right, this is going to be all right. Like, we're going to be okay. We got good leaders in this locker room. We got good heads here that are going to prevail. And so it just hurts me because he is everything you want from a teammate, and he put it out on the field, and he gave you the athleticism to do some unique things that the Bills do in the run game. The only place where I'm okay with it is I do trust Aaron Cromer a lot. And I think that this move doesn't happen unless he's signing off on, we can move 100%. McGovern over here. And I feel comfortable with that. I think there's a lot of people that assume this is a Mitch Morse is going to hang out and come back. I don't think the leaks would come out that McGovern is going to be the center if there was any scenario where that was the case. I don't know.
It just wouldn't have commented on it.
Correct.
There would have been no reason.
We wouldn't have heard about it. They're putting that out there to get ahead of this. You and I questioning like, well, I can understand Poyer. I can get my brain around Tre. This other one doesn't make sense to me. What is going on? that information seemed to be given to the media of like, yes, this is a weird move. It might not make sense, but this is why. Here you go. Here's the reasoning behind it all. And so I am going to trust Cromer there, and trust that they believe in some of the depth of guys like Alec Anderson, and that they've seen something in the practice and things like that where they think he can be a good backup, because they also did move on from Rick Bates, and those moves in coercion tell me that they have faith in the people that are in the building. So yeah, that one was a tough one to swallow, just from, again, that leadership standpoint. Losing Poyer is a tough blow to the leadership. I think Tre in some ways is a tough blow to leadership, but
he was more like the lighthearted
correct.
leader, like not like the traditional leader, but he was respected, worked hard, and was kind of the guy who kept it light, which is valuable. Yeah, not the same as like a traditional leader, but still had a role.
But they also would talk about like the Monday through Saturday of like what you have to do to work in the NFL to get the job done. He showed that he was like a leader by example, but Mitch seemed, again, that just calm presence. And that's hard to find in the end. You get a lot of rah-rah guys, you get a lot of those team leaders, but I don't know that you have a lot of Mitch Morse in different locker rooms around the league. So I think he's a special dude. And that one probably out of all this right now hurts the most.
Before we move on to some other crazy news, I want to share something fun about Cover One that we have going on. For anyone who's listening here, there was a couple different things. If you were a OnePass member, you knew about the David Edwards signing last week. We try to share different things that are in there, and today was an awesome time to be in the Cover One Slack channel and to help incentivize, besides the cool things you're about to hear these two gentlemen share with you about why you should sign up for the Cover One OnePass. We are adding a giveaway. Anyone who signs up between now and the NFL draft on draft night during our live show, we are going to announce winners for a long stretch of really cool prizes. We're giving away a PlayStation 5. We're giving away a Josh Allen jersey.
Right. Greg's wife's
Bill's
making him get rid of all his stuff. Get rid of this.
Some things. We're giving away some autographed jerseys, a really, really cool list of prizes, on top of the fact of being able to get some of the really cool items like what you'll hear about right here. Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One OnePass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
So again, if you're wanting to get more insight from us, more access, I'm actually doing a special show tomorrow. I've done a couple OnePass exclusive shows just for our guys in the channel there. Or if you just want to figure out a way to help us, like all the access and tools that we use, that's what helps pay for it, is being able to sign up for a OnePass member. So help us out, goes a long ways there.
Yep.
The most surprising move today. So each of the things that happened today, I literally had listed on my sheet of release or pay cut. I hoped a whole bunch of them would be pay cuts instead of literally every single one of them being a release. I did not expect all of them to be released. I thought some of them would just be pay cuts, but I listed them there because I could see the leverage the team had. I could see the position they could put the player in, and that, hey, we can release you and save a bunch of money, or you can come back for less money. I thought some of them would.
And then we don't create a hole, right? Now we've had a lot.
And then you don't
holes.
create a hole.
Right.
We just created a bunch of holes. We'll deal with that later. The one I didn't list was Von Miller because,
why would
we had no leverage.
This?
We had no leverage. There was no threat that we could make to him. He had a guaranteed contract with another guarantee coming up in just a couple weeks. It would cost us more to release him than it did for him to stay. So he had no downside. Brandon Beane had no bullets in his gun. He could not threaten him in any manner. So later on this evening, one of the later moves, maybe the latest one, I don't remember. They all happened so fast. A tweet came out that Von Miller had renegotiated his contract. That is a very key bit of semantics. Restructure means the same amount of money, moved around in a shell game. That's what we did for Connor McGovern. That's what we did for Rasul Douglas. That's what we probably did for Ed Oliver. It's what we're going to do for Josh Allen. It's the same amount of money. We just moved it around and made it look different. It was announced that it was renegotiated. That piqued my interest and caught my eye. And there wasn't a ton of details. And it talked about, hey, they moved some stuff around. And at first I was like, man, I hope they didn't restructure him, because it was already going to be kind of painful to move on next year. And if we now make it impossible to move on from him, now it's guaranteed to be a 4-year deal, and we have no outs, and it's just making it more and more painful.
That would be
correct. Good. That's a bad decision.
Yeah.
So then fairly quickly afterwards, another tweet came out, and I read it like 4 times before I sent my tweet out, and I'm like, this is a pay cut. He just took a pay cut, and there's a lot of movement. He had $10.6 million in guaranteed salary and another chunk of guaranteed roster bonuses coming up. And that he would, there was like 17 million in cash coming to him this year in a combination of different things. He cut his salary down to 1.5 million. He took 7 million in a signing bonus. So the signing bonus is spread out over the next 4 years. That's 1.75 million per year. So out of all the things I'm going to talk about here, next year's cap number only went up by 1.75 million. This was not kicking the can down the road. Next year's cap number goes up by 1.75 million. There's still a couple official things coming out here, but it looks like he took his cap number from 23 million down to 9.9 million and a $14 million cap hit reduction.
Thank you, Vaughn.
As of today, it's a pay cut. There are incentives for him to earn back, and I'm going to believe that most of those incentives are fairly easy to achieve. I don't know how many tackles or how many sacks or how many games played. He only played 7 games. He only had 5 tackles. He had 0 sacks. Anything above there. If they literally do 8 games played, 1 sack, and 6 tackles, all of those are not likely to be earned, and they wouldn't count against the cap until he achieves them. And if he achieves them, they wouldn't hit until next year's cap. They're not going to be. They're going to be higher than that. But I don't know how high, and I don't know how many levels of incentives there's going to be. I talked to our guy at Yards Per Pass a little bit, because he, some people are trying to dial it back of like, hey, let's slow down. He's not just some, benevolent, amazing person here. The incentives probably aren't that high, but he gave up guaranteed money. It was guaranteed. He didn't have to do any of this.
Yeah.
He gave up guaranteed money. If he has a setback this summer and doesn't play, he gets none of those incentives.
Right.
If he re-injured in week 1, he gets none of those incentives.
Mm-hmm.
If any of those things happen, and if he plays well and earns the money, well, then great. He's a pass rusher, and we paid a pass rusher to go rush the passer and get sacks and play in all the games, and that's what's supposed to happen. So don't let anyone tell you this is anything other than a team-friendly deal from a guy. You've brought it up a lot of times. He speaks in like manifestation and in like only positive affirmations of things he wants to achieve. If you're ever going to talk a player into a team-friendly deal where, hey, you could earn all this back and even more, we'll make it even more that you can earn back than what you could have got. Because technically, I think that's the deal. He could make up to $20 million, which my guess is that's if we win a Super Bowl.
Sure.
If we win a Super Bowl and he plays all the games, I'm guessing he makes $20 million. And if that's the case, God bless him. He can have all the money. And
he's going to drag every member of this team to a Super Bowl.
If that happens and he earns all if you're going to talk someone into that, it's going to be someone who speaks in positive affirmations and believes in manifesting himself. And that if anyone's going to believe in like, hey, I'll take a pay cut and then bet on myself, that's the guy you want to go to. I just can't freaking believe he did it.
Yeah.
I honest to God, I bet some people in the NFLPA called him and said, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because we're not crazy.
Yeah.
We're not crazy about like, are they holding you hostage? You don't have to do this.
Right.
I genuinely can't believe he did it. I can't believe it.
Yeah, this one too, because of, like, when all these other moves were coming out, I saw a ton of people, and they're not wrong. We're saying like the reason we're in this position are bad contracts like Von Miller, are bad deals that the Bills have made that aren't paying out, and now you're reaping these problems because of that. But then you go and answer that with this. Another part of this too is if you've listened to Von Miller's podcast, I've listened to all of them, and people can say whatever they want about Von. And I know that his free agency pitches have been very annoying in the past of like, I guarantee you this person's coming and all that stuff. That is totally annoying. But listening to Von Miller talk about football, his love for the game of football, his understanding of the history of the game of football, his respect for the game of history of football. But then as a player, I've never really heard player talk about the other side of football, the business side, and his desire to be a GM and how all of that works and how roster construction works. And now how he's always constantly thinking about, he wants to be a GM and he's always thinking about the moves.
No better crash course than,
than
this negotiation.
The moves that he would make and how these types of deals impact teams. And I don't know, but I'm assuming that played a role into this, that he sees the Bills up against the cap. He sees the Super Bowl window they're in. He knows the history that he's trying to achieve of being a player to win multiple Super Bowls with multiple teams. I think all of these things go into him being able to make that decision. Like you said, also the positive affirmations, goal setting, all that stuff. It almost just plays into his personality to take this pay cut. And Brandon Beane's his mentor in this GM world. So I'm sure this wasn't the hard conversation that maybe it would be with other players, where he's probably been in with Beane and some of these types of conversations about roster philosophy and management and salary cap management. And Beane probably went to him and said, hey, remember these conversations we had, dude? Look where we're at. We need to do something. Can we do something? And hey, I'm going to set some goals for you. Maybe if we get you some goals, you can get all that money back. And so to me, as I thought about this, it kind of makes sense for the player, the personality, and where this team is and where he is in his career. He's made a lot of money. So even though he will have an opportunity to get some of that money back, I don't know that it's about all of that. And so this actually now, and as I pulled back from it, it was so shocking when I first saw it. Because like you said, we don't see players just give up guaranteed money. And in the NFL PA doesn't want players to just give up guaranteed money. They want more guaranteed money for players. And so it was shocking just on face value, but the more I kind of the nuance of who this is and what where he's at in his career and with this team and the goals he wants to reach, it kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Quick shout out to our guy here, Joe Marino. I'm watching people debate things in the chat. And I'm like, oh, that's Joe Marino chiming in and helping in the debate in the chat. What's up, Joe? Good to see you.
Man?
I have a feeling I know Joe's schedule. And he records every day his Bills show, usually between like 11 and 2 is his normal time frame of when he records.
Well, he did 2 episodes today, though, because he had his full mock offseason coming, right? So he had a 2-episode drop.
Oh, yeah. I do my normal once over of his mock offseason, looking at the financial side of it, and looked at there. And I know when that happened. And then I also know when all this news happened. So I'm really curious what everybody gets tomorrow of
couple extra coffee cups of Joe.
Yeah. How many retapings Joe did tomorrow? I'm very excited. Everybody should be checking out Locked On Bills.
Appreciate your work, Joe.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I just was flabbergasted. Like I am very sentimental in a lot of the different pieces I do. You guys heard my reaction about Mitch Morse and Tre White and Jordan Poyer. I can get very sentimental in the player side of it, but I'm very pragmatic. Joe here saying the whole thing was blown up. Thanks. I'm very pragmatic when it comes to the financial stuff. And I even I don't speak in a ton of absolutes, but I would have laughed at someone if they told me that Von Miller was going to take a $14 million cap hit reduction because of an almost $10 million pay cut. And again, whatever you want to call it, pay cut. He reduced his salary and let the team convert them into incentives. Again, if he blows an Achilles in this, while he's
that
training
mahogany
this summer,
come on.
If he has a setback in his recovery or re-injures his knee, he gets none of that money. That's a pay cut to me. So it's wild. It's absolutely wild. I can't believe it happened.
Yeah, I wonder if him mandating you have to now go get Odell Beckham for me is part of this.
Hey,
Like,
maybe there's a signing in there. Maybe, maybe Leonard Floyd. Like,
it might be.
I'm half joking, but like,
Or
maybe there was
get some of this
a
money, get some of these
specific
guys back.
move.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a specific move today. Brandon here joking, did Beane actually cut himself today? There was a lot of people like, wait, did I get released today?
Yeah.
Like, did I get fired? And did Brandon Beane fire me? And I don't even know about it. Like,
I bet players. Yeah, I'm sure some of these players knew this was coming beforehand, but I bet players were like, this wasn't a fun day for dudes on the Bills roster.
You know, the gif that everybody uses, like the young chubby kid that like does the like,
yeah.
There was
it's awkward.
Somebody posted like every other Bills player in the facility today looking at Brandon Beane as he walked by, being like,
well, there's only a couple more that made sense, right? Hamlin would have made.
Correct. Hamlin was one. I will say, so there's I want to give a shout out to our guy Sal Capaccio. There was a tweet here. One of the signings, and a minor one, was Matt Haack got added. And Sal posted today, not kidding when I write this, because I know how it will sound to many of you, that I wouldn't doubt if re-signing Matt Haack was just as much about Tyler Bass having a down year versus when he had his best season in 2021 with Haack as a holder. So today,
points over punts, baby.
Sam Martin has not been released. He has a guarantee coming up on his contract March 18th. The only thing I can think of why he wasn't announced today is that they go to him and say, hey, if you waive that guarantee, we will allow you to continue to compete for that job. And if you win the job, you get the salary, but we're not going to guarantee it. And if you don't agree to that, they're going to release him prior to March 18th. They're not going to let his contract guarantee and lock themselves in. But my guess is that they are going to offer him that opportunity to say, hey, you can come in. We might draft a guy. It might be you and Matt Haack. It might be, we don't know who it'll be. But
we might give up on punting. I don't know.
We might never punt again. We're not sure. All punts are turnovers, so that makes sense. Each of those are in play, but I guarantee you they're not going to let his contract guarantee on March 18th in the current structure that it's in. So that was another move that happened today. But yeah, Damar Hamlin, technically Reggie Gilliam is a guy you could have cut, but it doesn't really make sense.
Do anything for it.
There was no benefit. He's cheap. There was no benefit to cutting him, other than just it didn't hurt you.
Yeah.
Again, Sam Martin,
players to play special teams.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. We Tyler Matakevich is walking out. We lost Siran Neal. We haven't re-signed Cam Lewis. Like the vast majority of our Terrell Dotson's probably leaving.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of snaps that left. But yeah, the Damar Hamlin is a guy they could have released, but is cheap and still contributes. Reggie Gilliam, Sam Martin is a logical one that I think will prove itself out. But everybody else, as I went through, I built my list just by working in reverse. Where are the financial benefit without dead cap that hurts? And that's where my list of Sam Martin's right here. I might as well post the list.
Yeah.
That's where I created it from, is I just work in reverse as I'm building it to go through, and it kind of sets us up in, hey, here are the moves. So as I go through, I look, hey, and I obviously did estimates if they did a pay cut instead of being released, but instead we released all of them. So between all those moves, the pay cut from Von Miller and the trade of Ryan Bates, which we'll get to Ryan Bates and David Edwards in just a second, those add up to $51 million in cap space. So again,
so
Tre
we're trading
White's
for
not
Justin
there.
Jefferson. Is that what you're telling me?
So in the short term, it's $41 million, which gets us to just barely over. I think that we're probably going to add in Josh Allen, because we did a lot of moves to where it's technically not required, but we can't even fill out a roster or sign our draft pick, so we need more. And I do think it made it where we don't need to do Stefon Diggs anymore. I don't think
they want to do that.
Correct. It gives them flexibility, and I still think he's here this year and next year, but it makes it that it only has to be this year and next year. It doesn't kick it into 2026. Josh Allen is not going anywhere no matter what. So there's no real downside there. So I think that puts us into a spot where we have $26 million to work with this offseason. And then we get the $10 million back from Tre on June 1st, which lets us go where Beane could use all $26 million of that up until June 1st, because he knows he has that other number coming. And $26 million is a normal offseason. That is that's about what we had last year when we saw Leonard Floyd, Connor McGovern, Deonte Harty level signings, not monster signings. We're not going to go shopping for, super high end guys. We're not going to, go for top. We're not going to sign Chris Jones or anything like that. But it would let you have a normal offseason where we can do our normal value signings and a couple small splurges, another starting safety, someone like that, a starting, an edge contributor, a starting caliber receiver, something, basic in that level. So,
yeah, bringing some of the guys back. We know they want to draft and sign, and a month
maybe
ago,
Epinesa now they
like
have room to bring back
an
Epinesa, or obviously Daquan Jones was our top priority from our show last week.
Yes.
So again, that's where this is at. The couple other moves. Let's talk about these two in tandem. We saw the trade of Ryan Bates yesterday. When that happened, when Rick Bates was traded, I had mentioned, last week we got some inside information that David Edwards was coming back, so we knew that was going to happen. And when we saw the trade of Ryan Bates, I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. We still have Edwards here. We'll see where that goes. The combination of those two plus the release of Mitch Morse really threw my head into a loop for a minute here. Subsequently, we found out they're going to move Connor McGovern to center and that David Edwards will compete at guard. So it was just a lot all at once that Mitch Morse left, Ryan Bates left. The new number for David Edwards was $2.295 million. We reduced Connor McGovern by 3.1. So the combination of it was, let's see, so Connor McGovern plus Mitch Morse plus the savings of Ryan Bates, that's $13 million between the three of them. And we gave back less than $3 in the David Edwards signing. So we still have that starting lineup with $10 million and change less of what the offensive line costs. So later on, we might go through a couple of free agent discussions for our wish list if we have time. We can probably add somebody and draft a guy and be in pretty good shape. We can do that and still be cheaper than we were going to be coming into the offseason. Again, in a private moment, I'd probably tell you I would have rather still had Mitch Morse and probably still had Ryan Bates and the luxury of having depth along the offensive line and not having to worry about it. But anyone who's worried about, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're completely starting over, I got to tell you, an offensive line of Dion Dawkins, David Edwards, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, Spencer Brown is about the same as what we had last year. Like Connor McGovern and Mitch Morse were both good players. I think Morse was a little bit better, but he was also another year older. You do start to see some drop off at age 32. I still think there's reason to feel good about that. That's going to be another season where if we had kept both Bates and Morse, I think both you and I would have told people, hey, this isn't the best offensive line in the league, but it's above average. And now with those five I just rattled off, I tell you, this isn't the best offensive line in the league, but it's above average, and it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get my biggest concern is, and this is something Eric almost like 30 minutes after 13 seconds, he wrote me, he's like, we're kind of trying to be reasonable in it. And he's like, I don't know that we'll ever be that healthy again in this type of window. And that was his concern. And that's how I feel right now about the offensive line is,
sure,
we
didn't need it last year, but that was really lucky.
The depth and insurance was so nice. And even having Edwards as that big O lineman, we've talked a lot about the NFL's changing a little bit. And I expect to see more 12 personnel and condensed sets and extra linemen because defenses are getting smaller. And how do you combat smaller, faster defenses? You get bigger and you push them around. And so I'm wondering how that's going to play out. Is it going to be Alec Anderson? Is it going to be some of these other backups they have? But are those guys going to end up getting tested now this year? Because I doubt you're going to get through another year where all your starting offensive linemen go through a season without any types of injury. So, yeah, I would love to have Morse back and kick back to the days where we had some more depth that I felt was start ready. But this is the world of the NFL. Not a lot of teams have that kind of depth. Barely teams are able to put together entire offensive line units, let alone have depth that is starting caliber depth. So it does make sense in the end of the day. The Bills need to, as we talk about, like Mitch Morse looks a lot older than he actually is, but only being 31. Like people are always shocked. Do you think he's way at the end of his career? He looks like he's chasing Kelsey's age. But the Bills do need to do some of the stuff. They need to rip some of this down and get younger and get quicker and get more athletic at spots. And this is how you do some of it. And some of that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, some of the moves here I'm just going to show for anybody asking, hey, where are we at with our official cap numbers and those things? There's still some math to be worked out here. There's a lot of stuff announced today. You'll see some of the websites like Spot Track and Over the Cap still working their
Right.
way through with the new adjustment that put us at 43 million and change over coming into the offseason with the moves that have been announced right now. Again, I'm going to remove Tre White because we're not going to get that until later. I am projecting we're still going to restructure Josh Allen. We're still going. I think they already did restructure at Oliver, but that'll be announced.
Taron
I
better
think
get
we're
an
also going.
extension.
I think we're going to release Sam Martin. Those moves would put us at $31 million under the cap. Plenty for everything we need to do this offseason. That's without an extension for Dion Dawkins, without an extension for Taron Johnson. And what this does is means you could do extensions for those guys and not take in extra cap savings and kick further cans down the road. You don't
Sure.
have to do that. You could just do a regular extension and leave this year's number the way that it is. You don't have to do that. The same way that we don't have to now do Stefon Diggs.
Right.
So all these things the way that it happened there, and then we would get the Tre White number back in, which puts it at 41 million over the cap or under the cap. So I think that they're going to be somewhere in the 25 to 30 million dollar cap room range going in when it officially starts. We're going to have a couple more new moves announced as the week goes here. I don't expect extensions to be announced. That's not where Brandon Beane's focus is right now. He's getting ready for free agency. I think the remaining moves we'll see will be a release of Sam Martin or an announcement that his guarantee has been agreed to be voided. I think we'll hear about the restructure about Oliver, and I think we'll hear about the restructure of Josh Allen. So those three, I think, will be added into the kitty. And that will put us, in my estimate, is it could be as much as 31 million under the cap. I think it's going to be at least 25 million under the cap, and they'll be able to have a fully regular offseason. So for lots of people asking, that's where my math is right now. We'll see when the official numbers come out, but that should give you a ballpark of where we're going to be. It does, in theory, put us into a position where they could function without a restructure of Josh Allen, but that 8.6 million is barely enough to fuel the roster.
Yeah.
That is barely enough because we do not have 51 guys on the roster right now. So you would have to add guys just to get to that point. That means every free agent signing would be like the $1.7 million kind. You couldn't bring back Daquan Jones. You couldn't bring back AJ Epinesa. Any of those kind of moves, or sign a starting safety, or sign a starting receiver. I don't see that coming. There is logic to not kicking the can down the road for Josh Allen. There is logic to doing that. I think they're going to. I think that will be just a requisite move, and that gives them the money to have a totally normal offseason. This was the medicine. This right here, this was the medicine they took, was releasing all of these big time veterans. And that was the painful part of what we were doing here.
Yeah.
And I think they're still going to do the Josh Allen part.
Yeah, no, I hate to speak in that blue, but they're going to get that done. It's funny because you always talk about there's always money in the banana stand, but I didn't realize you had to like throw out bananas to get money back
So
in
many
here.
bananas.
But yeah,
I was looking forward to eating those bananas.
The reason too that I do believe that the Josh Allen thing is going to get done so that they can get up to a regular offseason is you don't make these kind of cuts unless we still are in a Super Bowl window and we have to have a regular offseason and we have to bring in some people. And in order to do that, we got to unload some of this stuff. Otherwise, you would have kind of kept some of this together and just look at what the Saints do, right? Like they just kind of keep going and putting some form of a roster together and keeping what they can. That's not the position the Bills are in. The Bills are going to strip some of this down, reload, get back into this Super Bowl window, and that's what I expect to see. The problem with this is in getting ready for the offseason, stuff like the offensive line wasn't even in my not in my world, right? Like, and even safety, I was like, I'm looking for a safety. I'm not looking for two safeties, right? Like Tre White didn't really play into my offseason needs because we didn't know if he was going to be back. And I felt good with the cornerback room, but some of these other moves have changed the outlook of what the offseason is going to look like now.
Yeah. So a couple quick things here. I want to go through a couple of the moves. So some of the super chats people sending here, Carl, Cliff had a couple here just in the the different pieces. Really appreciate you guys. This is awesome. It really, really means a lot. A couple questions that came up. Jimmy here was asking, can they do a portion of Josh's restructure? Yes. You don't have to do the whole thing. So maybe that's a something that comes available for them. Maybe they do 10 or 12 million of Josh's instead of 23 million. That is possible. I could see something like that. My guess is they still do the whole thing, but it is an option not to do the whole thing. So we'll see where those come from and what those different pieces are. The other couple moves that were announced today were the re-signing of Mitch Trubisky. My number one priority for backup quarterback was be cheap, because I don't care. If Josh Allen gets hurt, nothing matters. There were some cute runs this year with Joe Flacco and Jake Browning, and they didn't matter either. And those teams got eliminated too, because if you don't have your star quarterback, you cannot make it in the playoffs or in anything that matters. So I don't care about, yes, in a vacuum, would I prefer to have a Jacoby Brissett or like a Gardner Minshew? Sure, but I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to lose a Connor McGovern or Leonard Floyd level signing because we wanted the luxury of a nicer, more expensive backup quarterback. Prior to this announcement, my fun Goldilocks pick for my backup quarterback for tonight was going to be Tyrod Taylor. And I was going to say, hey, I don't really think that we'll be able to afford a Ryan Tannehill but I guess it could be a Sam Darnold or a Tyrod or a, Andy Dalton kind of level guy. I think it'll at least be a Drew Lock or a Kyle Allen, or I would have listed Mitch Trubisky. He's in that same caliber for me. I think that's the kind of guy that they are. But I just care if it's cheap. I would have preferred like a Tyrod or a Tannehill or someone like that, but I didn't want to pay for it. I didn't want to give any extra money. The only thing I know about Mitch Trubisky is he's cheap and the backup quarterbacks don't matter. So I don't really care.
I don't like him at all. I think he is. Honestly though, this is hard for me, Greg, because I give a lot of people a really hard time about how they talk about NFL players and prospects. I don't like when people are like, this guy sucks. That drives me nuts. I think Mitch Trubisky sucks at playing quarterback. I do. I just do. I watched him last year, and like the fact that a Mason Rudolph outplayed him in that terrible Pittsburgh offense. Mason Rudolph is also not a very good NFL quarterback. The fact that he outplayed him, it wasn't good. And what I agree with you that I've said it 100 times on this show. If Josh Allen goes down, nothing matters. Everything sucks. It's not going to be good. But in my mind, that's if Josh Allen goes down for an extended period of time. Yeah. We've seen over the past couple of years, Josh Allen get hurt to where if you had a functional quarterback that you felt could ride out 2 weeks, it might be a benefit to your team. 2 years ago, it could have probably benefited Josh Allen to sit for a week or two and let that arm heal. And I didn't believe in Mitch Trubisky then. I didn't believe in Kyle Allen last year. And I agree with you. I don't want to pay a Jacoby Brissett to have those potential 2 to 3 weeks where Josh hurts his arm doing something crazy, and now we need somebody to let him rest for just a couple of weeks. I still would like to draft somebody at some point that has some traits and maybe bank on that. I'm still on board on like, hey, maybe we pull Travis Jordan at some point here and hope that he heals from his injury. But getting a guy like
Milton or whoever,
somebody that just has more traits than some of these guys. And even if it all breaks down, they can get out of the pocket and scramble and do something that is a little bit electric and can keep you going. And hey, if they happen to pop for a couple of games and some team wants to trade, then hey, we got some chips and we can move some stuff. But these constant just rotating these borderline barely good backup quarterbacks drives me nuts a little bit. But it is the reality of the situation. It's just going to be some bum backup that they have that as long as he gets along with Josh Allen and is nice to Brandon Beane and golfs in the offseason, whatever, it's all good. But one thing I will say, a lot of people in my mentions were like, at least we know he's better than Kyle Allen. And I don't even know if that's true, to be honest. Like he has played better than Kyle Allen.
Well, I said we've seen better play from him.
Sure.
We've seen that.
Yes. Many years ago now.
You're correct. Yeah, it is. And the only thing I'll push back on is I think like the 2 to 3 week window thing is brought up a lot, and it's not wrong, but I will tell you, I still don't think the backup quarterback matters, because if the opponent in those 2 to 3 weeks are the Giants or the Cardinals or the Bears, I think our roster plus Mitch Trubisky can beat those teams. And if the opponent during those 3 weeks where Josh Allen is out is the Bengals or the Chiefs or the Eagles, I don't think it matters whether it's Mitch Trubisky or whether it's Jacoby Brissett. They're also not beating the Chiefs or the Eagles. So I still don't think backup quarterback matters all that much. I think the rest of our roster with any replacement level Kyle Allen, Matt Barkley level quarterback with the rest of our roster and our coaching staff will beat the crappy teams. And even if we had Jacoby Brissett or Gardner Minshew, I don't think it really matters against the Chiefs or the Eagles or whoever it is. I kind of think it's going to result in what it would have resulted in anyways, and we need Josh back for it to matter anyways. So I think it gets overstated a lot of how impactful it is. And that, yes, again, Jake Browning and Joe Flacco had really cute runs, and then they got eliminated too because it doesn't matter if you don't have your franchise quarterback. All right. The one other move that happened here, and it goes along with another question that came up here. We re-signed Taylor Rapp. So we haven't seen the details on it yet, unless something came out during the show. It was announced as a 3-year deal worth up to $14 million for Taylor Rapp. So if that was his average annual salary, that's too much money. That's more money than I want to pay him. It's obviously not. That's why it said up to. My guess is that we gave Taylor Rapp about $3 million, and then we'll see. And we'll see. I'm guessing there's not a lot of guarantees, maybe any in that second or third year. Maybe there's a little bit of a signing bonus that makes it likely a 2-year deal, but not guaranteed. And if he starts, it's great. But if somebody beats him out, it's also not crazy. Last year, he was a $1.77 million guy, and he contributed and played as a third safety. If somebody beats him out this year, I don't think it'll be the end of the world, but they're paying him and setting up his contract with incentives where if he plays like a starting safety and does that, he can contribute and earn some of that money. I've always thought he was a better fit as a Jordan Poyer replacement. We kind of had to try to shoehorn him next to Poyer when Micah Hyde got hurt. He's not a center fielder. He is a box safety coming down, making hits in the run, sound tackling. Now that Jordan's out, I kind of think he'll look better than what he did where we tried to use him as a center fielder. He's not that. Eric and Anthony have talked a lot about, hey, with the new coaching decisions, the DB coaches that came in, where some of the background is for Bobby Babich, maybe we're going to see more single high. Maybe we're going to see more man. Maybe that gives Kyer Elam a shot at more snaps. And I kind of think that makes sense because now you could more consistently have Taylor Rapp down in the box, and we'll draft or sign a center fielder like a Jeremy Chin. No one wants Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams is not a good football player. He's barely a good blitzer. He's a horrible safety. So Jamal Adams, I don't have any interest in. But Darnell Savage, we talked last week. Darnell Savage, Alohi Gilman. There's lots of good safeties out on the market. Jeremy Chin would be awesome. I want one of those rangy athletic center fielder. Yeah, Cam Curl. I would love to bring in one of those guys who have athleticism and can do a lot of different things. And playing alongside Taylor Rapp is fine. And then we'll draft a guy and have another free agent safety and a draft pick and DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp, and that's going to be fine. Those will be our 4 safeties, and they'll make it work. And whoever it's going to be, if it's Alohi Gilman is a really good kind of guy that wouldn't be terribly expensive, has range and athleticism, can play the center field role. And if we go into the season with Alohi Gilman and Taylor Rapp as our 2 starting safeties, it'll be fine. And you make a draft pick that can also contribute or compete there, it'll be fine. I'd love it if it's Jeremy Chin and Cam Kinchins or something like that in the draft. That'd be amazing. But even if it's not, we're going to be okay because I think Taylor Rapp is better suited as a step down. He's certainly not peak Jordan Poyer, but like the Jordan Poyer we had left, he could probably do that.
I'm torn on Rapp. He's pretty reckless. He's a reckless football player.
Yes. He does throw his body around.
His body around. A lot of friendly fire, which I hate when he throws that body around. And he takes bad angles and stuff too. So maybe you can teach some of this out of him. I don't believe he's a starting caliber safety. I like him in that third safety role. I like what they were able to do. I know I was hesitant and pushed back against the dime stuff, and I don't know how much they're going to be able to do of that with Milano and Bernard back. I think that answers some of it.
Press the like button, people.
Yeah,
He,
hit
he
that like.
Greg Michaels pressed like twice. He did it on his TV and his phone because he's
There
a
you
good
go.
person.
Log
I
in
can tell.
everywhere. Log in
He's good.
everywhere
Yeah,
and hit
give
us.
us a like everywhere. All
That's
the
it.
places.
But yeah, no, I would like to still see them attack this position very aggressively here
I
this
still want 2 more.
offseason. Yep,
I
I
want
would
2
like
more.
2 more and 2 more that I'm pushing as starting caliber guys to push Rapp back down because then I feel a lot better about this. If he's your depth guy coming in injuries, coming in on dime looks, stuff like that, I think that's perfectly suiting him. But as a starter, I do have concerns there. And so I would like to see them still aggressively attack that market, especially because I think it's a devalued market. And this is going to be where you get the best ROI. And I think some of that plays into their decision to let Jordan go and know that, hey, even if Micah wanted to come back, maybe it's, hey, no, it's just time to move on because this is a devalued position. We can get younger, we can get more athletic, and we aren't going to have to pay crazy premiums to do so. There's plenty of guys that are fits. We've talked about them all last week. You can go back and watch that show where I think that they know this is the timing is worked out just right this offseason where we have a surplus. There's some decent guys in the draft. We can get at least 2 of these guys. And I hope that's still the plan.
Yeah. So I will say Dylan here asking, can we afford Cam Curl? He's probably at the very high end and he might be out of our price range. He very well might be out of our price range. I think him and Xavier McKinney are both probably up there. Kyle Duggar obviously was
and maybe Chin is, we still don't know.
Again, I still have no freaking clue what Jeremy Chin's going to get paid. It hurts my brain. Some of the projections I've seen for him so cheap. But if that's the case, I really hope it's us.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that one goes. There's a good chance Cam Curl is too expensive for us, but it's still possible. We don't really know. I will say both of the Taylor Rapp and the David Edwards deals are paid as though they can be starters, and they're giving the player the upside to be paid as a starter. So we've seen that in both directions. We've seen that in other deals in the past where like, well, we'll see. But we also saw it with when Siran Neal signed his deal. It had incentives in case he was a starting player, and it never was. And he was just a valuable backup and a depth guy. So we'll see where that goes. There's been other signings like this in the past where it certainly had the upside to be a starter, and it paid them as in a way where, hey, the base is down here, but you have incentives you can earn up here. And then if they don't play, they don't get the incentive. So if I had to guess right now, I would guess David Edwards and Taylor Rapp are both starting week 1. I don't think that's a guarantee, but if I had to guess right now, I would say both of them are starting week 1. But it's yet to be seen. There's a lot of offseason. They haven't even started yet.
We haven't even started the league year yet.
We haven't even started the new league year yet. There's a lot to happen between now and then. We'll see where that one goes. So I think it's there. And as Marcus is saying here, with the amount of quality safeties out there in free agency, there's a lot that we can still do. And like he said, a couple of these safeties are going to get the Poyer treatment from last offseason. He's spot on.
And to your point, we got Rapp and Poyer last year for the cost of safety.
Yeah, less than I thought Poyer was going to get by himself. We got both. So I would love if we go in and, again, I know you feel I like Rapp more than you do. You like Hamlin more than I do.
Yeah.
I would love if we have one of them step up and bring in a guy that we know can be a starter and then a developmental draft pick. All of a sudden we're good and we feel really good about it. I think a name that would make sense for what Marcus said, Brad just brought up here, Kevin Byard. He is the perfect kind of guy that, hey, he's probably not going to get top of the market money. Obviously, I really hope it's Jeremy Chin, but if an Alohi Gilman or a Kevin Byard all of a sudden will make me feel like, oh, okay, all right, I feel fine now. Like it would be totally fine. And guess what? We just signed Kevin Byard's former safety coach as our defensive assistant. I think his name's like
Joe knows if Joe's still watching.
Yeah. If Joe Marino's still here, I think he was the one who picked up on this. But yeah, one of the defensive assistants we just signed is his former safety coach in Tennessee. So we're going to have a very informed opinion on Kevin Byard and whether he still has any juice left to be able to sign him. So, all right, let's do a real quick hit on, now that there are some openings of what's there. What were the handful of names you did have on your wish list? You can take it wherever you'd like it to be.
Well, now I got to go pull it up here.
All right. So one, I mentioned before, I had Ryan Tannehill and Tyrod Taylor on my wish list. None of that matters anymore because now we signed Mitch Trubisky, and we technically still have Shane Buechele on the practice squad, the guy we took from Kansas City.
Yeah.
So they'll likely be the 3 quarterbacks going into this year. Buechele will be quarterback 3 from the practice squad, and it'll be Josh and Mitch. I think that's not 100% off the table, but I think that's pretty much a done deal.
So honestly, I had written just like, I don't care about quarterback. And I had really nothing for offensive line going into this offseason. So really the only positions that I was really targeting for this episode are wide receiver and running back, as in terms of positions that I know the Bills have to get guys in to bring in. And I put out a tweet earlier, and I got a lot of pushback, and I get why, because the way I worded it, but with the moves we saw today, safety shoots up in terms of need for me. It was already a need. And with the Taylor Rapp signing, it does pull it back down a little bit, but I still think safety, 1 tech, even backup 3 tech, edge, all these things are pretty big priorities for the Bills to get younger, better, faster at. And so those are high priorities for me. Wide receiver 2 is still a super priority in terms of we need bodies in the wide receiver room, but I don't know necessarily that it's my top priority and I need to get the top end, whatever it is. Like, I'll be fine if it's the first round pick. There's a lot of guys out there. There's a bunch of mock drafts and I'm happy with all of the fancy toys, but they're all luxuries to me right now. I think the Bills could have a productive offense with some of these guys that are on my list, plus what we've got already in-house, and just continuing to fill in that with kind of value thrift free agent market. And so a couple of guys I had, Darnell Mooney. I think that he's one of these guys. My brother's a big Bears fan. He thinks Mooney's been treated very unfairly in a terrible organization with terrible quarterback play and a really bad offense. And he might be looking for a small 1 year, I'm going to prove that I am a number 2 borderline number 3 value production wide receiver. Just get me on a contending team with a good quarterback, show that I can put up 1,000 yards with somebody, and then I'll go off and get a big deal. Those are the opportunities I would love to see. So I would go after a guy like a Mooney, a Josh Reynolds. I'm more interested in bringing Gabe Davis back than I think almost all of Bills Mafia is. If there was the ability to get a good team-friendly deal early on to get him back, he's still 25 years old. I think he can do more than Bills Mafia has shown, or that he has shown them. And I also had guys on my list like a Kendrick Bourne, or even people don't want to hear it because it was super annoying with Von Miller, and Odell Beckham Jr. Just a guy that can be on the boundary. He can still get open, do some things. I think you can have a productive offense with this and get that wide receiver 2 fixed now and still draft a guy and still prioritize that in the draft. But I think you can take care of this here in free agency and not totally break the bank to do it.
So I want to sign one and draft 2, especially now that Deonte Harty's gone. I want to draft 2. We need 3 more for the room. All we have is Stefon Diggs and Khalil Shakir right now.
The Justin Shorter people are coming at you.
Justin Shorter is wide receiver 6 he's a receiver in the same way that why am I drawing a blank on who is our former running back, who is the gunner forever?
Taiwan Jones.
Jones
so disrespectful to Taiwan Jones right there.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I blanked on his name. So Justin Schroeder is a special teams player only until I see otherwise. Sure. He can be wide receiver 6. We need 3 more wide receivers. So, you listed off a couple of them. My splurge guy would be, hey, if these guys don't get the deal they're looking for, Josh Allen is the kind of player you want to come back for on a 1-year deal to reset your market and get more money later on. That's Darnell Mooney. He's my preference. Curtis Samuel or Tyler Boyd. Those 3 guys, I think, should get 10 million plus in the open market, especially with Pittman, Evans, Higgins, all being retained, none of them hitting the market. That means I think Gabe is right in that group. Gabe Davis and Curtis Samuel, Darnell Mooney, Tyler Boyd are going to get paid. Someone's going to pay them too much money.
Why does it feel like Tyler Boyd's 38 years old, but he's not? Why does it feel like he's so old?
It is weird. So one of those guys, if they don't get the market they're looking for, that's my preference. If they don't, I think the most realistic are either Josh Reynolds or Noah Brown. So Noah Brown, you saw him for a little while in Dallas. Last year had some flashes when Nico Collins got hurt in Houston, looked really, really good there. He could be an outside starter. Josh Reynolds had the same kind of moments in Detroit. Both of those signings don't prohibit you from doing anything. They could be our initial Ramon Humber to the Matt Milano we drafted receiver, and then you don't need to push a first or second round pick into that starting spot immediately. You can ease them in like Seattle did with Jackson Smith and Jigba, where you draft him, but you have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and you don't have to force the issue. A Josh Reynolds or a Noah Brown lets us do that, but they also won't sign for so much money that when a rookie takes over for them by week 9 and pushes them to a wide receiver 3 or 4 role, it doesn't become a huge issue. It doesn't blow up in the locker room. Sure. It doesn't make people upset. It's the natural progression of things. The low end of that is maybe those guys also price us out. I like the idea, Kendrick Bourne, but you say it really, really well all the time. ACL injuries are 1.5 to 2 year injuries.
Sure.
He tore his ACL in October. I don't want to mess with that at receiver. If we sign him to a multi-year deal and it's an investment for maybe we get something this year and then you get him next year, sure. But I don't know that I want to mess with that and just hope that he's healthy. I don't want to just go down that path. So the cheap guys for me would be Nick Westbrook-Akine from Tennessee, KJ Osborne from Minnesota, Marquez Valdes-Scantling from Kansas City. That if one of those guys are signing for like $1 or $2 million, that's fine. I also won't be mad if we sign 2. If we sign Josh Reynolds and KJ Osborne, then maybe we just need 1 draft pick at receiver. Yeah. Also, David here
trade for Sutton.
It's not crazy. Ben Albright is as plugged in as anyone in the Denver market. He thinks that Courtland Sutton could be had for a 4th round pick. We just got an early 5th rounder that kind of helps us, not maybe we could afford to give up that 4th rounder because we just got an early 5th rounder. If we trade a 4th round pick for Courtland Sutton, you can also convert. He has a $13 million salary this year, which you could convert and restructure down to like $3.5 million in cap hit. I'd be okay with that. And Courtland Sutton would immediately alleviate any need to press for a receiver. It would also open up that, hey, maybe you wanted to take a Xavier Worthy or a Ricky Pearsall or a Ladd McConkey where, hey, they're not stereotypical outside starting receivers. Well, now if you have Courtland Sutton, you could just take the best receiver that's available. It could be a guy that plays inside outside. It could be another Khalil Shakir type receiver where you don't have to force them as just an outside receiver. Right now, people want Brian Thomas Jr. or Keon Coleman or Xavier Legette because we have to have an outside guy.
Right.
Well, if you trade for Courtland Sutton, it just opens everything up. Now you can just take the best receiver and just whoever you want. I still want one in the first, in day 1 or day 2. I still want a premium investment at receiver, but trading for Courtland Sutton would open that up wildly. So
yeah,
again,
my dream scenario this off.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's likely.
Tweeted that out.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please sign me up.
So again, I don't know that those are super sexy ones here. Let me check off a couple names for some people on the offensive line now that it does look like we're probably going to sign one and draft one with the moves that happened. Some flexibility on the inside. Coleman Shelton is a name that could be signed. Phil Haynes is the guy that we liked in the draft before. Mm-hmm. Eric's a big fan of him. Or you could bring back a guy we're familiar with, like a Greg Van Roten or something like that. Just an internal, versatile guy that could play around. The guy I really like at offensive tackle, I don't think we sign Andrus Peat, but he's a guy who's probably in that like swing tackle range. Maybe a Chris Hubbard is another guy who'd be a veteran tackle. The guy I really want, because he can play I don't think he can play center, but all 4 other spots. He's started at guard. He started at tackle. He has the best option to be the new Bates or David Edwards, probably the jumbo lineman, could play all 4 other spots. Cameron Fleming is the guy that I want. Cam Fleming is a guy he's a veteran. He's probably not a guy you want starting 17 games, but he can play all the spots. He would really plug an immediate hole, and you could probably get him for pretty cheap, like $2-3 million. You get him cheaper than Bates was, and now all of a sudden we still have that flexibility back. That would make me feel better. So Cameron Fleming is the guy I really want that would make a lot of sense in those kind of spots. Give me your list at running back and explain why we're going to sign Derrick Henry.
I don't have that. on my list. I do not have a Derrick Henry name on my list. I've got Ty Johnson is my priority at running back. I saw enough to want him back in this offense. I love the pop that he provides. I thought that was a nice addition. Even played Leonard Fournette out of a role that I think Brandon Beane actually wanted Fournette to get real reps. And
Leonard Fournette did not sign here to never freaking play.
Correct.
I can promise you that. When he came in, he did not expect Ty Johnson to take that job.
Yeah, and I don't know that Brandon Beane did either. That's why they signed Fournette, and it's so good for him. I'd like to get him back, keep him in this offense. The other ones for me is Ezekiel Elliott is a sneaky one for me that feels like a fit. Dude, he had okay production for the Patriots. He looked good at times. He's a great pass blocker too. Like he's the perfect setup right now in his career. 28 years old. He's had success in the past. He doesn't need to be the guy. He just has to be part of the rotation and be a good pass blocker when he's called on. I think that's a good fit. And maybe, I don't know what his market's going to be, but people want to offset James Cook with a power back. AJ Dillon's out there. And with this offensive line, I don't know if this offensive line is going to be as good as last year's offensive line was. But I think the problem, what A.J. Dillon needs, which the Green Bay Packers didn't really have, is an offensive line that allows him to run 2 to 3 yards without getting touched so that he can use that power. Yeah, then you have that power that gives you that extra few yards to continue to move forward. And that is what the Bills, I think, need. As much as I love Josh Allen in short yardage stuff, it'd be nice to have the option to take some of that load off of him.
So, I mean, the exact same spot. It's I'm obviously joking about Derrick Henry, but that my list is only power backs. That's the only thing I looked at.
Yeah.
I want to sign one. I want to draft one. So I want the biggest, fastest running back left in day 5. I know our wonderful producer, Chris Kepner, would love for that to be Audric Estime. I'm fine if it's Ray Davis or it's, whoever. There's all kinds of big running backs that'll be left later on in the draft. Braylon Allen from Wisconsin would look fantastic in a Bills uniform. Yeah. That is a chiseled young man. I would like them to go out and sign Zeke Elliott, Gus Edwards, AJ Dillon, or Deonte Foreman. Those are the names that I would like to see. Having one of those guys, I think, is going to lose this game in musical chairs. I think they would love to sign with a team like the Bills. I think that a backfield of, James Cook and one of Gus Edwards, AJ Dillon, Deonte Foreman, Zeke Elliott would be a wonderful backfield. Mm-hmm. I'll ask you a quick quiz real quick. Who do you think's older, Gus Edwards or Ezekiel Elliott? You obviously know the answer because I'm asking. Gus Edwards is older than Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel is 27. It's insane. Yeah, he's 27 years old. It's wild.
It's because it's
because we knew about him from his freshman year at Ohio State.
Yes.
We've known about him for 10 years.
Correct.
Crazy,
yes.
But anyways, I think one of those signings plus, again, whoever the biggest, fastest running back left in the 5th round is, give me that combination.
Sure.
Again, as I think Elvis here is bringing up here, Braylon Allen is just an enormous chiseled freak. I would, he's my favorite. I won't be mad if it's Audric Estime or Ray Davis or whoever else is left, but my dream would be Braylon Allen and James Cook. And honestly, if I had to put my chips on one guy, it probably is Gus Edwards. I think he's the most logical, cheap guy that's there. AJ Dillon sounds good, and I would be probably the happiest with him because I think there's still some upside left there. But Green Bay's offensive line was pretty crappy. I have a feeling he's going to get paid a little bit more. So I think the guy who would be cheapest and still would have Gus Edwards is a hammer. He's great at the goal line. He can get short yardage. And our offensive line, again, is not perfect, but we're a damn good run blocking line now. There was an awful lot of times where James Cook was way down the field before anybody touched him. If you give Gus Edwards that head of steam going downfield, it won't be crazy. And I know Marcus is on fire in the chat tonight.
Yeah.
I know people think Zeke Elliott's trash and no good anymore. He's still an awesome pass blocker, and he's still pretty good in short yardage.
He does his job.
And with our offensive line, he'd be fine. He really would. Like, I know, and this was another name I couldn't think about, a guy that I didn't know about. I didn't know Isaac Guerrero existed until I saw the combine, and then he destroyed the combine. It was like the biggest, fastest guy that was there. So yeah, he's definitely on my list right behind Braylon Allen. Those would be two guys I would love to draft. Anything else? We're going to re-sign Quentin Morris. He's an exclusive rights free agent.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life where I really wanted Jonnu Smith. I really, really wanted him to be a Buffalo Bill, but we're going to have Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and Quentin Morris. Like, that's just going to be the tight end group. We don't really need anybody else. So I technically wrote down Jonnu Smith because it would be fun, but Quentin Morris for the veteran minimum is perfect.
And you have Reggie Gilliam in case of emergency.
And Reggie Gilliam is also a tight end. So
sure.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No,
anyone else? Anything else we didn't touch on tonight?
It's been a long day, Greg.
Oh my God. It's wild.
It's been a long
today
day.
Broke my brain. It broke my brain. I just cannot believe that we saw 11 transactions today. Just today. There were 11 transactions. It's absolutely wild. I can't believe it. So
and
again,
we didn't even get to talking about the size of the statues.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Guys, a 16-foot statue is still
nobody cares anymore. Brandon Beane saw all of us complaining about statue size on Twitter, and he's like, "Watch this." Yeah. Okay. You want something to complain about, jerks? Here.
Oh my God. So anyways, we appreciate you guys. Please help us out again. I let you know if you want to support us and be able to learn more and get in that Slack channel. It's fantastic. You get exclusive shows just from us. You get our X's and O's glossary. You get our salary cap 101. You get all kinds of access to all the staff here. Plus, you can win all kinds of cool new things, giving away a PlayStation 5, giving away Josh Allen jersey, autographed jerseys, Bill's neon sign, all kinds of cool stuff. And if you don't want to do any of those things, listen to our man Ron Beck, one of the originals in the Slack channel, one of our biggest supporters. Love Ron. Click that like button. That's the best way to tell people about what we have going on here. We put in all this work for you guys. Help us out. Press that like button. It's the nice thing to do. We would really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Aaron, anything else for the people before we close out the show?
No, man, I'm getting excited. The league year's about to start. Real stuff is happening, obviously, today. And football's going to be back, and we got some real stuff to talk about. We're getting through the hardest part here of the winter off season.
Oh, so Richie here just signed up with us. Thanks. Appreciate him very, very much. That's the way to do it, man. Appreciate you guys. On behalf of our awesome producer Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Cover One Buffalo podcast, and we are out.